You're now watching a clip from the Inspired by show. You can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or listen on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to head over there, leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and follow the show. People often think they're clear on what they do, but actually not a lot of people do actually know. That's one thing I've noticed with publishing books, because I'm always looking for the top line, because I'm not the reader. Most of the time, I'm not the ideal reader. Ironically, for your book, I was, which the amount of times I was reading a chapter and then I was going into a sales call, I was like, I'm going to give this a go, you know? And I joked about it with you when I was editing the book with you. But often people don't know what you know. And so I see this a lot of the time, and it happened with me and it's happened with you. And I see it loads of authors. Their family don't really know what they do. And then suddenly they understand what a book is, and they're like, I don't know what you do, but now you want to publish a book. And they can't compute. They can't see the connection. They're like, who do you think you are? What are you doing? And actually, if we listen to those voices, it can actually stop people in their tracks. I'm sure there are so many fantastic books,
there are.
probably best-selling authors in the making, that have not even started because of those voices.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you're going to get a dose of imposter syndrome big time if people around you that you know, love, whatever, actually have got no idea about what you do. I mean, the only person I would excuse on that is my mum, and she's coming up to 100 this summer, and she thinks I'm in advertising.
Well, in some way.
Well, it is in some ways, and it's just like, how much am I going to argue about this? But obviously I'm not. But you know, it's just really interesting. It's always a good reminder that if you aren't really clear, people get very unclear about what you do, and they can't actually say what you do. Somebody I worked with who really influenced me on this was a brand specialist about 1,000 years ago, and he was working on at the time the Toys R Us account, and it was before they were Toys R Us, and they were a big sort of department store, and they put a focus group outside the front door saying, you know, I want to go and, you know, if you were going to go and buy a children's toy, where would you go? And the people right outside the front door were saying, oh, well, I'll go down there, go three roads on the left, and this, that, and the other. And, you know, it was hysterical. And until they changed the brand to Toys R Us, nobody knew what they did. Wow. They thought they sold children's furniture.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It's fascinating. And that made a huge impact, had a huge impact on me. Yeah. So being very clear about what you're doing and your messaging, getting a really clear message, making sure that whatever circumstance you're in, that if somebody says to you, what do, you can really nail it in a very few words. You know, it's not about waffling on, because you're just going to send people to sleep. If you can just anchor it, then not only you will light up the eyes of people who really want to take your service or whatever, or they'll say, I know somebody who wants it.
Do you know what? I'm giggling a little bit as you were explaining that story, because I had this recently with some family. So even being in business 7 years, up until I've properly branded as a book publisher, because we've been publishing books for 4 years, but we were branded as like a shadow publisher, was just a mentor. Then we'd have like a VA team behind the scenes. Only in the last year or so, year and a half, have we jumped in and gone, we're actually a book publisher and we publish best-selling books. And since I wrote Just Write the Damn Book, my dad's a plumbing and heating engineer, he's 70, and he's still on the tools. That's another conversation. And he randomly called me up one day, and I thought, why is my dad ringing me? Like, my dad doesn't live anywhere near me. Like, we check in, but he never calls out of the blue. And he goes, Chloe, I'm at this guy's house. He's really well off, and his wife wants to write a book. And I've told him about you, and he's just Googled you, and she's bought your book. When you come over, it was for Christmas. When you come over for Christmas, I know you've got loads of plans. We're going to see loads of family, but I'm going to take you up to the house and we're going to have a chat, and you're going to give us some tips on her book. Is that all right? And I'm like, on one hand, I was like, oh my God, my dad's just got me a potential new client. On the other hand, I was like, it's Christmas. Like, what, Dad? We're having a break. But it just proves the point, right? Is that if people aren't clear what you do, and actually books massively help them get clear on that, because then they go, okay, so what did you write a book about? I wrote a book about how to sell like a woman. What did you write a book about? How to write a book. You know, it's so clear that people can then use it to explain what you do better.
Exactly.
Because if they don't know how to recommend you, how are they going to ever mention you to other people?
Yeah, it's hopeless.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I could have this chat with you all day long, Suzi. And one of the things that I really love about your experience in this as well is that you haven't just sat down at your desk and written a book and, just been like, yeah, I'm a best-selling author, whatever. You actually lived essentially your dream lifestyle throughout this book process. I mean, every time we had our calls and you were in a different part of the world, I was like, where are you now? This is amazing. And you took your book on holiday. So how was it like now publishing your book, being on a sun lounger, enjoying it, and sort of tell me a little bit about what it's been like post-launch?
Oh, well, yes. Well, of course, that was when I took the proof copy away with me, and I had these little sort of sticky blue things on each page where I wanted to sort of make an adjustment or a tweak or whatever. Some guy sort of a couple of sunbeds down said to me, "Is that book any good?" And I said, "I hope so. I wrote it."
Or I'll be having words with my publisher if it's not.
But it's a bit weird to say it because everybody sort of swings round and looks at you, and it's all a bit weird, really, but funny all the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing that often I find with authors. I don't know if you find this, but I'm often so excited for an author who's about to launch because I know what it's going to be like. I mean, we've got a plan of their launch day, as you know, are very strict with what they're going to do at each point, which I'm obviously not going to share here, but it's very somewhat regimented, but quite structured. And the investment of time that goes into a launch.
Yeah, I do.
When you was like, go to sleep, Suzi. We've done well. You can rest.
17 hours is enough.
But what I often find is people don't quite realize when it's happened. So like, they might do really well and then be like, oh, I'm a best-selling author. Still sat in the same seat. I'm still logging into the same computer and, might get takeaway to celebrate or open a bottle of champagne, but I think a lot of people expect it to feel different and expect to have this new sense of energy. What was it like for you and what did you expect?
Again, I think because I'm me, I just sort of took it as it came. I didn't really, it never started landing with me until people said, aren't you writing a book? And I said, well, actually, I've written it. Well, actually, I'm a #1 best-selling author. And the words get stuck in your throat, especially if you're just a little bit sort of like a quiet achiever person. It's like, what? People would sort of shout back at you and you'd say, well, I don't know it. I wasn't one to shout from the hills about it.
Yeah.
It was just an extension of what I do.
Yeah.
And as I say, my biggest takeaway on that was just looking around a room in a restaurant thinking, yeah, and I bet I'm the only one in here.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.